Hello and welcome to the Free IP Fandom. I'm your host, Felix Chaplin, and today I'm very excited to share an interview I did with one of my favorite singers on YouTube. He's been posting song covers on YouTube since its early days in 2006, and his repertoire includes many great songs from the Tin Pan Alley era of popular music. You can even hear some of his song recordings in our show, Pussyville. It is with great pleasure that I introduce everyone's favorite singing lumberjack, Christopher White, aka Isto. Hey Isto, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well myself. For starters, can you tell us a bit about your musical background?
I've been playing music most of my life. Started playing the guitar when I was 9. Started writing songs a little before that, I guess, although I didn't finish many of them until I got a bit older. Took guitar lessons for a while, majored in music in college, and I've been teaching guitar and teaching other kinds of lessons since then, and performing. I like to play a lot of different styles of music, but the sorts of things you'd see me doing the most would be singing and playing the guitar.
Yeah, I definitely see the variety on your channel. You've got everything from, like, the Beatles to Tin Pan Alley stuff. How did you get the name Isto?
It comes from the middle part of Christopher. When I was in high school, somebody said, "Why do they call you Chris? Why not Topher or Isto?" And I thought, Isto, that's interesting. And so then a few people started calling me that, and then it sort of became a stage name.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that until just now, that it's right there in the middle. What got you into Tin Pan Alley music?
Oh, that's a good question. I probably came at it a bunch of ways. I guess I was exposed to a lot of that stuff originally through singers, through the singers who keep that sort of stuff alive. So I listened to a lot of Frank Sinatra growing up, and a lot of Bing Crosby, a lot of Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong. Yeah, I listened to a lot of these artists who were singing these old songs, and when I started playing stuff like that, I was always interested in the songs. I think when I was in college, I took jazz guitar lessons for a few years, and I learned a lot from my teacher, Tony Lombardozzi, and but I was always really interested in the songs. I think more than some students of that probably are. I think some people want to learn to improvise and take really cool solos, which I was interested in learning that too, but I think I was probably more interested in the songs themselves and what was going on in the songs. And yeah, I've always been a big fan of a good song.
Yeah, definitely. The singers you named, like Frank Sinatra and Louis Armstrong and Billie Holiday, well, those songs were contemporary for them, so I wouldn't exactly say that, they're keeping them alive, like how you're keeping them alive.
Some of them, I guess, when you said Tin Pan Alley, I was thinking of like 20 songs from the 1920s, but I guess I'm picturing some of the recordings from the 50s that were written in the 20s, I guess, that sort of thing. But so I guess some of them were recording in the 20s, and then some of those songs were written in the 50s. So Sinatra was known for like rediscovering a lot of the older songs that had stopped being, or some songs that had never really been that popular, but he thought were really good. And he's one of the key figures I think of for that. They tell me that "I've Got You Under My Skin" wasn't a standard until Sinatra covered it in the 50s. I don't know if that's true. He also did it in the 40s, but I think it was but I think I remember hearing that it didn't become as well known of a song until his version from the 50s. And I think there are a lot of songs like that with him, I think.
I actually didn't know that. Frank Sinatra and Louis Armstrong, like, they were active in the 40s and 50s. And the Tin Pan Alley era is considered to be from the 1890s up until the introduction of rock and roll in the mid 1950s. Yeah, the 20s is definitely in there, but it's a bigger time period. Yeah, the songs that are now in the public domain are the ones from the 20s and before. But songs like "Brother, Can You Spare a Dime?" or like you said, "I've Got You Under My Skin." Even "How Much Is That Doggy in the Window?" Those are all from the same era, even though they're from different decades.
True. Yeah. When I hear the phrase Tin Pan Alley, my brain goes to the 20s. Like but I know that the term is used to describe that longer time period as well.
How did you get your start on YouTube?
In I guess it was 2006. I think I made about maybe 20 or 30 videos of myself playing music in the backyard, and I posted them on my own personal website. Like I uploaded them there, and you had to click on them and download them to watch them. And somebody said, "Oh, you should post them on YouTube too." And I thought, "Oh, YouTube, I've seen YouTube." So I posted all those videos on YouTube, and then I didn't think of that as something that I was going to keep doing until I guess about 6 months later. There used to be something where you would get featured on the homepage of YouTube, and somebody was a guest, was like a guest editor or a guest something or other. So he was in charge of what was featured that week, and he posted one of my videos, and so then it got a whole lot of views. He posted my song, the Banana Song, so now that now has about 900,000 views, something like that, and a bunch of my other videos got watched a lot back then, and then I thought, well, I should make some more of these YouTube videos, so I kept posting.
Out of the Tin Pan Alley songs that you've recorded, which one is your favorite? Or if you can't think of one favorite, you can give me your top 5 if you want.
Well, that's a good question. Which one is my favorite?
Or top 5.
I don't think I could pick a top 5 or a favorite.
All right, limit yourself to one Irving Berlin song.
One Irving Berlin song, man. All right, I have to pick one Irving Berlin song. That's an awful situation to be in.
All right, one Irving Berlin, one Cole Porter.
Yeah, let's see. What and do they have to be Tin Pan Alley songs of theirs, or like so when I think of Tin Pan Alley, I think of like the pop songs, like the ones that were written for sheet music, as opposed to the ones that were done for Broadway or the ones that were done for the movies. I don't know if that's the same distinction that you would use.
Well, I know that like the Broadway ones, like they were and movie ones to an extent too, were generally also released as sheet music. So I guess whatever is on sheet music, you can.
Anything on sheet music counts. Okay, well then we should be in good shape. Yeah, what would be a? I mean, I have to think about that for a second. I did go through a big Irving Berlin phase where I think I read every book that there was out there about him and just learned a whole lot of his songs.
I'm still in mind, so.
I love his songs.
If I can throw a couple names out there, maybe of ones that I know you've recorded. I know you've done Everybody's Step.
Oh, that's a good one.
Mandy.
That's a nice one.
I'm pretty sure you did Always and How Deep is the Ocean.
Oh, that's one of my favorites. That would be up there. How Deep is the Ocean? Cheek to Cheek. That's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, no, that's great.
One thing I like about him is that I really like his early songs a lot, and I like his later songs up until the 50s. The one, I guess, towards the end of the 50s, the songs that I've heard I don't like quite as much. But when I first was getting into him, I was interested in finding more public domain songs. I think that was one of my pathways into studying him a lot. Probably was I was thinking I should write a book of guitar arrangements, and I've written a bunch of arrangements down, but I've never gotten around to making a book of them. But I remember thinking I should look for public domain songs. So I was looking at like at that time I think it was everything up until 1923, and it had been or either 22 or 23. Do you know what it was for a long time?
1922.
22. Okay, so yeah, everything up until there, we were in that frozen time period where that never changed, and I just kept looking for older songs, and I remember like looking into Jerome Kern's early songs, and some of them I liked, but most of them didn't really grab me in the same kind of way. But then I started discovering that I liked a lot of the early Irving Berlin songs, in addition to I knew I liked his later ones, but I found a lot of early ones that I really liked a lot.
Early ones I can think of are like Alexander's Ragtime Band. I don't think you recorded Everybody's Doing It Now, but that one's another good one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've recorded that one. That is a good one though. It's a bear there.
I like the call and response in that one. Everybody's doing it, doing it, doing it.
Yeah, that's an early example of the throwing that phrase "doing it" into a song. I guess that was that Scandalous at the time? Kind of the same move as when Cole Porter did it later with Birds Do It, Bees Do It, even Educated Fleas Do It, Let's Do It.
Oh, back to Irving Berlin. I know you also recorded Sunshine. That's another great one.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. I hear a lot of jazz groups covering that one. A lot of the hot jazz groups seem to like covering that one. I think because it's a simple chord progression, and yeah, I guess it's a fun, simple one to improvise over. But it's a great song. I don't usually see it listed among like the great Irving Berlin songs, but I hear people covering it.
I don't think you recorded this one, but I know Remember is another great one, also called You Forgot to Remember.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I've seen tons and tons of covers of that one. Very few of them where people are actually singing the lyrics, but just like people improvising on the saxophone usually.
Yeah, what's the last line in that's so great? You promised
that you'd forget me not, but you forgot to remember.
That's it. Yeah, that's a good line. Yeah, I've been meaning to do. If I were to record it, I'm never sure if I would do my own like guitar kind of thing, or if I would kind of do it in the style of Ukulele Ike and play it on the ukulele with his sort of chords. He does a nice version of it.
Yeah, I think there's two versions that I've heard of that one, like an album version and then like a radio version where he like does this woman's voice. It's like I remember the night you said I love you. Remember? Oh yes, I remember that.
Wow, I'll have to check that out. That sounds fantastic.
Well, I mean, he sings the song first, and then he does that at the end.
That's kind of how I do that stuff sometimes. I do it regular, and then I get a little wacky.
I know you did that for Changed Partners.
That's right, yeah. You know, I started doing that because my wife commented that she really disliked the song, thought it was really creepy, and I thought, all right, well, I'll do a creepy version of it then.
Well, it's interesting to hear the backstory behind that one. Oh, you also recorded What'll I Do? That's another great one.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Yeah, I heard some people covering that one in 2020. I guess that was one of those old songs that I saw people posting on the internet. Yeah, it seemed like an appropriate song at that time.
Yeah, that one and Are You Lonesome Tonight are the two big ones that I saw in 2020.
That's a beautiful one. Oh yeah, I remember doing that one myself. And you know, I did the song "We'll Meet Again." I saw a lot of people doing that, but as far as I can tell, I was the first person to do that in the pandemic era. Because I'd actually been the song was on my mind because I'd only recently discovered that Vera Lynn was still alive. I think at the beginning of 2020, I happened to like look her up, and I was like, "Whoa, she's still alive! I should do a version of that." Then the pandemic hit, and then the next day I thought, "Well, I should do "We'll Meet Again," and then I started seeing a whole lot of other people doing it, and I'll take credit for that. I'll say they all did it because of me.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can't really tell at this point, but we'll give you credit for that one. I don't know if we're gonna actually get around to getting your top 5 songs then, huh?
Oh my, yeah. What was it? My top 5 songs in general. Yeah, it's just an endless list. It'll whatever. My favorite one is whatever one I'm learning to play at the time, I think. But yeah, how deep is the ocean is one of my favorites. That's a really nice song.
That'll be your one Irving Berlin song for the list.
I mention that one in my songwriting classes a lot because it's just one question after another, and I tell people that's a good way to write a song. Just have a list of questions. It's a beautiful melody, and it does a lot of interesting things. And then at the end of the whole thing, it just seems so inevitable. Like, how could this song be any other way? It's always great when somebody writes a song that's that interesting and also has that feeling of inevitability.
Yeah, and especially since Irving Berlin himself apparently didn't know how to write the sheet music himself or have any kind of formal music theory training or whatever, and he had other music secretaries actually writing it down for him.
Yeah, I would love to be in a room with him and one of his musical secretaries. I wish that I could find some sort of in-depth interview with one of them in which they talk about the process in detail. Yeah, pretty amazing that he could do all that stuff. And I always wonder how much give and take there is because they came up with the piano arrangements and everything, and so I think that part was somewhat collaborative. But it was always he always supposedly had the idea, he always knew what he wanted, and then he'd be like, no, not that, no, not that, that. But I wonder what it was actually like.
I heard that Michael Jackson kind of had a similar process. He would actually beatbox what he wanted the song to sound like, and then whatever producers he was working with would make it work.
That makes sense. I think of Michael Jackson as a better singer, so probably was easier for them to know what he wanted.
Yeah, now I'll have to look this up because there's probably more interviews with people who worked with Michael Jackson around than people who worked with Irving Berlin, especially since he's more recent. How many Cole Porter songs did you do? I know you did Let's Do It, and you also did I Got You Under My Skin, right?
Yep, I've done that one, and that's one I don't. When I do it, I'm just copying Frank Sinatra. I don't really think I do my own thing with it, and but it's really fun to get big with it the way he does, and not that I can sing it like him or anything, but I sing it in a way that's me trying to sound like him. Most of these songs I try to do my own thing with, but that one it's just his version in my head, and that's what I'm trying to do.
I'm more partial to Frank Sinatra's rendition was great, but I'm more partial to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Oh, I haven't heard their version, I don't think.
Oh man, Frankie Valli hits those high notes really well, and it just sounds really beautiful.
Yeah, that seems like it would be a good version of the song. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, you want to throw out a couple more names of songs that you really liked, that are among your favorites that you've recorded?
Songs that are among my favorites that I've recorded. I'd have to look and see what I've done.
Yeah, I really liked your recording of I Can't Give You Anything But Love. That one was great, and also...
Oh, thanks. That's one I've been playing for a long time, and I think the ones that I play for a long time before recording often come across better, probably.
You also did great on Everybody's Step.
Thanks. I haven't played that one in a while. I should play that one again. That's a fun song.
I didn't, I had heard the name of the song, but never looked into it, and then when I was scrolling through your channel, I saw it, I'll give it a listen, and then I hear Everybody Step to the syncopated rhythm, and oh, this sounds really good. I haven't been able to find any recordings of that song from, 1921 or 22? I haven't been able to find any recordings with vocals, but I did find a recording by Paul Whiteman's orchestra.
I got to talk to somebody who played with Paul Whiteman's orchestra one time. He was a friend of my grandparents, and his name was Spiegel Wilcox, and he was a musician in Utica, New York. And I remember my grandparents had talked about how he used to play in the Tommy Dorsey orchestra or something, or they said he played with Tommy Dorsey, and I thought, okay, he was just I thought he was probably just some guy who played back when everybody was playing in these big bands, and they'd been meaning to introduce him to me, but I never got to meet him in person. But my grandfather put me on the phone with him one time, and we talked for a while. But I looked him up a few years ago and was surprised to learn just how old he was. He was like a generation older than my grandparents, I think. And I mean, he played in the Paul Whiteman Orchestra in the 20s with Vic Spiderbeck and all those other folks. And I thought, wow, pretty cool to talk to somebody from that time period. I think I read he was like one of the people from the first generation to play jazz outside of New Orleans, I guess, like when that became sort of a I guess more mainstream, and I was just thinking that it was played around the country rather than just in one place. And he was like somebody who picked it up, and he was a trombonist, and I guess he was a local celebrity in Utica. But I remember my grandfather told him that I was a huge Beatles fan, and he said, they got one song that I just love, Yesterday. That's such a beautiful song, and he just kept saying, oh, that's such a beautiful song. Which Irving Berlin also likes that song a lot. I think a lot of those older folks from the older generation seem to like that song.
Yeah, well, it's pretty interesting that you were able to talk to someone who was able to record during the acoustic era of recording, like before microphones were even introduced to recording. Someone who got to play the trombone in front of that big metal horn.
Yeah, and I think he retired from music at a young age. Like I think maybe in the late 20s or something, he retired from music. But then they brought him back for some kind of reunion in the 70s, and I was reading up on his story, and I guess he was playing with a lot of the old timers in some sort of tour in the 70s.
Well, there's so like he was playing like old songs like from the 20s or.
Yeah, yeah, and my dad told me that he used to come to my grandparents' parties, and my dad has a memory of when my dad was a young kid of him at the end of the party when people were starting to go home. He'd be sitting out on the porch playing taps. I guess he'd always bring his trombone with him to parties.
I mean, yeah, like today with the internet, it's easier to look this stuff up, but I imagine it might have been a little less impressive to people back in those days when he would be like, "I played with Paul Whiteman." They'd say, "Who?"
Right? Yeah. It's true. Yeah. My grandparents said Tommy Dorsey, and I thought, well, that's impressive. But if they had said Bix Beiderbecke, I'd think, wow, that's even more impressive.
Bix was pretty great. I've heard a lot of his stuff too.
Yeah, and all these guys were great. I don't mean. I think just in terms of just because of how far back. I think. Yeah, I guess like if you played with Bix Beiderbecke, means you were playing a long time ago.
Are you familiar with like any of the singers from the like those early days of recording, like Billy Murray and people like that?
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of Billy Murray just kind of to learn about old songs, and I never really enjoyed his voice that much. I wish I liked his voice more. It's a little. I guess that's a little too. It's a little too old fashioned sounding even for me.
Well, like the acoustic recordings, like I can see what you mean, but like you had to factor in that the big metal horn they used wasn't as sensitive as the microphones that were introduced later. But have you ever listened to his stuff, like his song recordings from like the 30s?
I don't know if I have. I think I've heard his older stuff more. How many recordings did he make? Didn't he used to hold the record for most recordings or something like that? Or am I just making that up?
It might be, because I think he made like around like 6,000 to 10,000 recordings.
That's not too shabby. That's an awful lot. Well, have I told you about my great uncle? He was a vaudeville singer back in those days. He started. I think he started out as a choir boy. Like he was an Irish choir boy, and I remember they were worried that he wasn't going to have a pretty voice anymore when his voice changed. But then his voice changed, and he still had a pretty voice. And I've got probably like 50 pieces of sheet music with him on the cover. Him and his name was Eddie Healy, and his partner was named Alan Cross, and I think I have 7 records of theirs from. They all say they were recorded in 1923, I think. So I think I have 7 records and about 50 pieces of sheet music that I've collected. But he was my grandfather's uncle. But he died tragically in a fire in 1939. His apartment caught fire, and he had to leap out the window, I guess.
That's a grisly end, if anything.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't actually heard of him. The only Healy I know is Ted Healy, as in the Three Stooges. But hearing that his picture is on sheet music, that's actually a pretty big deal from what I hear. Because, like, if you had your picture on the sheet music, then that was a way of making it sell better. Which is, why you had, Al Jolson and Irving Berlin had his picture on there, and occasionally Billy Murray and other big stars.
Yeah, he was a big hit on the vaudeville circuit. I guess he toured the Heath and Orpheum circuits, or the Keith and Orpheum circuits. Am I saying that right? The Keith circuit, or Keith. Those words rhyme. I need to learn more about theaters. Yeah, one thing I wonder. So a lot of the sheet music says successfully introduced by Healy and Cross, and for like very famous songs. And I keep wondering, now does this mean he was the very first person to ever sing the song, or is he just one of the first people to sing it when it first came out? Because if he was the first person to sing some of these songs, that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, it would be very hard to tell these days what that means.
Yeah, you can find out who recorded it first, but it's really hard to find out who sang it first.
Especially with the lack of, they had movie cameras, but they couldn't record sound yet at that time, when vaudeville was still big. But yeah, that is pretty interesting that you have family history in the Tin Pan Alley, like in that time period.
Yeah, and it's been really exciting to be able to find stuff out. Well, to be able to, I've just bought a lot of stuff on eBay. I get an alert every time something comes up with his name on it, and it's pretty neat that I can find this stuff. When I was growing up, my grandparents had one piece of sheet music with him on the cover, and they didn't have any recordings of him or anything. And I think we all assumed that there weren't recordings of him, and I had no idea how many pieces of sheet music there were, and it was pretty neat to find all that stuff. I wish I could have played it. I wish I could have played the recordings for my grandfather before he passed away. But I can pretend. I can imagine that I get to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just, just being able to have those kinds of records and sheet music is cool in and of itself, even if your grandfather wasn't able to enjoy it all while he was still alive. I don't have any of my own family history in this time period, unfortunately, but I do have a small collection of sheet music. Back in, during the Tin Pan Alley era, like, you're probably aware that sheet music was the primary way that music was distributed. And like having them in records and Broadway shows and in movies were basically just ways of advertising the sheet music. And doing all this research on this time period, it's having its intended effect. I'm listening to these songs in old movies, and like The Vagabond Lover by the movie with Rudy Valley. There are some songs in there that I got the sheet music for, or like occasionally, like earlier you brought up Cliff Edwards. Like YouTube recommended this song called Me and the Man in the Moon that he sang, and I heard it, instantly fell in love with it, and searched for the sheet music immediately, and I bought it. Yeah, it's, collecting sheet music, even if I don't have a family member or anyone directly involved in it, it's still pretty fun, pretty cool to collect.
Yeah, there was one piece of sheet music that I was on the lookout for a while for the so I found out that he had co-written one of the songs that he sang. Most of these songs he was just the singer on, but there was a song called "Sweet Mama of Mine," which he had written with his singing partner Alan Cross, and also Ted Snyder. Yeah, so the three of them, I guess, had written this one song, and it was called "Sweet Mama of Mine." It took me years to find that one, but eventually a copy came up on eBay, and I was pretty excited to have that one.
Have you recorded any of those songs that you've got that he was on the sheet music?
Some of them, but only ones that are well known outside of him. I've done "Sitting on Top of the World," just rolling along. That's one that that I have the sheet music with him on the cover for. And
did he ever record that one?
No, that wasn't one of the ones he recorded. The recordings I have are mostly different songs than the sheet music I have. I think there might be one song that I have both the sheet music and the recording for. But there's one called "You're Okay, Katie, with Me." That was we had my friend play that at our wedding, my wife and I, and that one I have the sheet music and the recording for. You're okay, Katie, with me. I sing just that much of it, and you can tell that that's an old song.
I like how they have those kinds of rhyme schemes and stuff in the titles of these old songs. Like, you'll have to put a nightie on Aphrodite to keep all the married men home. And my cuties do at 2 to 2 today.
That's a good one. I don't know that one.
When the moon shines on the moonshine. That's a Burt Williams one.
Oh, that's a good one. Or I mean, that's a good title. I don't know the song, but it's a good title. If you have a good title, then you're most of the way to a good song already.
And then there's some other ones like there's a song from 1910 or 11 called the full title is "Any Little Girl That's a Nice Little Girl Is the Right Little Girl for Me." And like, just speaking it sounds kind of awkward, but like when you actually hear the song, it's really catchy. Any little girl that's a nice little girl is the right little girl for me. Oh, and Billy Murray actually recorded that one in the early 30s for one of those Fleischer bouncing ball sing-along cartoons. So that's another thing to look up if you haven't already checked that one out. Well, to switch gears a little bit from Tin Pan Alley, do you want to say a little bit about some of the original songs that you've written? Because I know you've made a few albums that are available on Bandcamp, is it?
Yeah, I think all my albums are on Bandcamp. I think I have about 20 albums up there or something like that. Yeah, I've been writing songs most of my life. I started writing songs before I started playing the guitar. I remember waking up one morning when I was I think it was the summer between first and second grade maybe, and I woke up one morning and wrote 2 songs. I just wrote them down in a notebook and just the words, and then I went down and sang them for my parents, and I thought this was kind of fun. I really liked that feeling, and so since then I've been writing songs.
Do you remember anything about the first one that you posted? The first album?
My first album? Let's see. My old albums, they're all pretty awful and badly recorded. But let's see, what was the first album I put out? It was my new ones are awful and badly recorded as well. but I see some improvement. Yeah, I think the first thing I put out and called an album was Lumberjack C'est Moi with an apostrophe after the L in Lumberjack. I'm kind of silly that way, but the Lumberjack is me, and that had, I think it was about a dozen songs. It had the Banana Song, Homeland Security Blues. I think it had My Bonnie Lies Under the Ocean, Gateway Drugs, Leave a Candle Burning for Me. I don't know. There were a bunch of songs that I had written when I was about 18, I guess, and 18 or 19, and I recorded all those in one session at a friend's house, and that was the first thing that I put out that I called an album.
Do you have any interesting stories about like behind some of the songs that you've written? Like, you get a weird inspiration, or like you hear a different song and be like, I can do this idea better, or...
I'm sure I have a lot of stories like that. Hard to think of them off the top of my head.
How about if you limit it to some of your newer stuff?
Yeah. What have I written recently? Let me think. Well, you mentioned Irving Berlin, Mandy. There was a song I wrote recently that was inspired by my own performance of that song, because I was when I did a YouTube video of that song, it was I sort of played the song without any preparation, and I just like went for it and just was free with it and was like, I don't even care about this song. I'm doing whatever I want with this song, and I thought it came out pretty well. Like sometimes I'll like really plan out how I'm going to do a song, or I'll work really hard to get it right or something, and then other times I'll just throw a song out there and just see how it comes out. And I think part of the reason I felt free to do that with the song Mandy is that I don't really think of it as much of a song. It's just a simple little ditty that doesn't really mean that much. Which allows me the freedom to interpret it freely, and I like that. And I remember thinking it's a shame I never get to do that with any of my own songs, because when I write a song, I'm always trying to like present the song and be like, hey, this is how a song of mine, this is how this song goes. You guys need to learn how this song goes. But then I thought to myself, well, there's no reason why I can't do that with one of my own songs. and then I remembered a song that I had written, If I Only Knew the Meaning of My Dreams. That was one from my most recent album. And I remember writing it and then liking the song while I was writing it, and then I finished it and recorded it, and I thought, that just sounds a little pretentious. The words are kind of pretentious. I sound pretentious singing it. I don't like that song that much. But then after doing Mandy, I thought, well, what if I redid this song, but just did it freely and just went for it? And so I did a more up-tempo, just kind of free version of it, and one take, and I thought, oh, well, I like the song a lot better now that I'm not singing it in a pretentious way, and that I'm just allowing myself to be free with it. It's like this... I think when I first wrote it, it was like, if I only knew the meaning of my dreams, if I could read the future in a plate of collard greens, something like that. And I don't know, I thought it sounded pretentious, but then when I went, if I only knew the meaning of my dreams, if I could read the future in a plate of withered greens, if I could understand the basic plot, if I could find meaning in the structure of my thoughts, then I'd see the world as it really is, and not through a smokescreen of overarching themes, of prism of isms and shadow beam schemes. If I only knew the meaning of my dreams. And then I played some kind of guitar solo and just played whatever came out, and I didn't really think about it too much. And then I decided I did like the song, and it was fun to play if I allowed myself to interpret it freely like that.
All right, well, bravo for that performance. And...
oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, the original version that you demonstrated kind of had a Beatles to, like, kind of a blend of Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I can hear that. I think it came out kind of like one of them, or like a contemporary folk song, or I thought it sounded. Yeah, I hear what you're saying there.
Yeah, well, definitely made a good call with that one. Definitely a lot more fun sounding.
Thanks. And so another song that I wrote recently that was kind of inspired by how I did another song was I did a video of C is for Cookie a few years ago, the Cookie Monster song, and that's a great song, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I thought, that's a perfect song, it's so simple, I could never write a song that perfect or simple. And then I thought, well, I should try to write a song like C is for Cookie. And I remember thinking, well, what else could I write a song about other than cookie? And I thought, oh, sandwich. I could write a song about a sandwich. And then I thought, no, I've got too many songs about sandwiches already. I should try to stretch out here. And for me, one of the hardest things when I'm writing a song is to avoid writing a song about food. Like when I sit down and write a song, they keep coming out about food. But I thought, yeah, what else could I get that excited about other than food? And I thought, like there's food, there's sex, which I don't really want to sing about that. People sing about that too much, I think. And then I thought, I know, going to the movies. That's something I get excited about. So I thought, I'll write a song about, so I just wrote the song, nothing beats going to the movies, nothing beats going to the movies, nothing beats going to the movies, take me to the movies right now. And that's the whole song, and I just repeat it, and I sing it with the same kind of enthusiasm that I do when I sing C is for Cookie. So the movies, cookies, those are simple things we can all get excited about, I think.
If I were to make a song about going to the movies, I would probably just switch out, I'd take Me Out to the Ball Game and just switch out ball game with movies. Take me out to the movies.
That would be a great song. Yeah, Take Me Out to the Ball Game is a great song, and that's a song that lets the food get in there a little bit. I think in a song, like the moment you let food slip in, it like takes you to another world, like another you're going down a different corridor when you let food enter in at all. Like I'm listening to a song, enjoying the music, and then they mention peanuts and Cracker Jack, and I'm thinking, food. I'm getting a little hungry, and if you're not careful, like the whole song becomes kind of a, I don't know, a different kind of experience if you let the food in there. But you can sprinkle it in artfully and have a little bit of that food. Under the Boardwalk, there's another song that lets the food get in there a little bit. You can almost taste the hot dogs and French fries they sell. Like they get you thinking about the food for a little while, and then they go back to being on a blanket with your baby. Yeah, and I guess that's from when Tin Pan Alley had moved up north to the Brill Building. I think was that a Brill Building song?
I'm not familiar. I only know like that one. I don't even remember who sang it, but like it sounds like it might have been recorded in the '60s or so.
Yeah, I would guess the 50s, but it could have been the early 60s. I think late 50s or early 60s. And yeah, it was, and I think it may have been one of the ones. So the Brill Building was farther uptown from Tin Pan Alley in New York, and in like the 50s and 60s, a lot of songwriters worked there. And Carole King worked in the Brill Building. Goffin and King were there, and I think Paul Simon worked there before he was famous. Like I guess he was writing songs in there before he was famous. I don't know much about what he was doing before he was famous, but I've heard something about that.
I just looked it up. The Drifters were the ones who sang it in 1964.
Oh, 64? That's later than I would have thought.
All right, so the last question I have here is, do you have any advice for anyone looking to do what you do on YouTube or making music or anything?
I think just keep working, just keep doing it. I've been very persistent my whole life with whatever it is I do, and I'm doing okay. You don't see me winning the Grammy Awards or anything, but I've been able to get this far in my life doing what I want to do, which is very pretty satisfying when I stop and think about it. But you won't get anywhere unless you're persistent with whatever it is you're trying to do. Just keep doing it.
Well, that's all the questions that I have written down. Now I'm still trying to think of what that other song was, that the one with the catchy name to it. I know there was another one from 1925 called Chick 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 Chicken.
That's a good song already. I don't know anything else about it, but I like it already.
It's funny how a lot of these Tin Pan Alley songs became kids songs. Like How Much Is That Doggy in the Window and Chick 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 Chicken is another one.
Is that a popular kid song? I don't know that one, so
Well, I didn't hear it when I was a kid, but when you go on YouTube and you search Chick 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 Chicken, you'll see like a lot of videos that are made for kids. Like I saw this one with this woman with like a bunch of chicken puppets in the background. I found that to be pretty amusing. One of the more interesting ones, in my opinion, is The Cat Came Back.
Oh yeah.
Like that one was originally kind of racist. Like it was a coon song, and it had a kind of funny, happier sound to it. But like when I look up modern recordings of it, they usually, I don't know if I'm using my music terminology correct here, but like in the minor scale, like making it sound kind of creepy about like the cat. You think it's dead, but it came back.
Yeah, the versions of that I've heard are all in minor keys.
Well, another guy he's another singer who I interviewed for this channel. His channel is called Catfish Franklin. He made a recording of The Cat Came Back, and that was the first one that I had heard of it. And that one was I guess in the major scale. I just thought of the other song. It's I'm Looking Over a Four-Leaf Clover.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one. I remember I first heard about that song at Banjo Jim's. I think I played a set at Banjo Jim's, which was a nice venue they used to have in the East Village in Manhattan. And I remember somebody came up to me after my set and he just kept talking to me about this song, I'm Looking Over a Four-Leaf Clover, and said I should do it. People do that after you play sometimes. They come up and they want you to know about one thing, and they'll make sure you find out about it.
Yeah, I've done that to all the people that I've interviewed on this channel. So. Like Catfish Franklin, he does more like folk songs. So I got him to. He still hasn't done this one, but I tried to get him to do the record of the old in '97, and no, he did do that one. I also got him to sing the Prisoner song by Vernon Dalhart. The one he didn't do was The Ship That Never Returned. That was the one where the tune was reused for the record of the old '97.
They're all like the same song, right? Like the MTA and the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald and the Ship That Never Returned.
Oh, the wreck of the old '97.
Or wreck of the old '97. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah, I said the wrong wreck. But I first learned that tune from the MTA song. It's the one about the subway in Boston. Let me tell you of the story of a man named Charlie on a tragic and fateful day. He put 10 cents in his pocket, kissed his wife and family, went to ride on the MTA. Well, did he ever return? No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever 'neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never returned. And it's got a bunch of verses about how he didn't return from the subway because they raised the fare.
That does sound a lot like it, so maybe it was.
And actually, I wrote a song kind of inspired by these songs. The Great Chocolate Wreck, about a train wreck that was in my hometown of Hamilton, New York, in which chocolate spilled everywhere because there was a car full of Nestle's chocolate and it spilled all over the place, and people came with wheelbarrows to clean it up. And I sort of made a melody kind of like these melodies. But I didn't write that song as catchy as I should have. I wrote it kind of as like a long ballad without a chorus. I think I should have written a chorus. I should have a look at that song again, revisit it.
All right, well, you'll be getting into the food again.
That's true.
And then when you started the MTA song, you said, listen to the story, my mind immediately jumped to about a man named Jed.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Oh, and I heard about another song related to those songs. What was it? Somebody in the IRT, and it's somebody wrote a song in the 50s or 60s about somebody getting beheaded on the subway, kind of similar to all these other ones. I think Dave Van Ronk, I found a recording of him doing it. It was somebody in the IRT and Dave Van Ronk. I don't think he wrote it, but he sang it.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Great talking to you, too. Thanks for bringing me in.
That's all the time we have for today's episode. Be sure to check out Isto's YouTube channel, which is linked in the description. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, support this channel on Ko-fi if you feel so inclined, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss what comes next from It's Free IP.